Our first module discussed active learning and constructivism. Our second module is kind of going to dive a little bit deeper into that and see how we can apply that with a specific learning model. And this learning model is called the quality teaching model. To begin with, we're going to talk about what quantitative values are versus qualitative values in the educational setting. So an example of a quantitative value would be things like data that is collected to guide instruction. Some of those examples of data can include things like demographics, so socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, those kinds of things. We also have number of students with free and reduced lunch, which falls under the category of socioeconomic status. We have rates of student success in classrooms, school, district, county, city, state, etc. We have assessment scores and state testing scores. The importance of a quantity value in education is that it is helpful to improve student learning and retention of knowledge. When educators are able to look back at the data and statistics, they can apply that and come up with a goal or a plan to put into place moving forward to ensure that students are successful. When we focus our lens to qualitative values, then what we are doing is we're focusing on higher quality teaching, not necessarily the teachers themselves, but how we can make sure that teaching is high quality. We are integrating and explaining content in a way that is conducive to the learning environment. Qualitative values enhance students' learning experiences, and they are necessary to improve student learning and retention. So what is the quality teaching model? The quality teaching model aims to support teachers in useful ways to create best practices in the classroom. So some of those examples are enhancing the intellectual quality of lessons that are created and administered. There is an obligation to be accountable for investment in schooling, teacher education, and intended outcomes within school settings. We also want to make sure that we're focusing on approaches to teaching, mindsets that the teachers have, and goals set by the teachers. And there is also an emphasis on the environment because you want to make sure that you are fostering a space filled with respect and rapport and fostering an environment where students feel comfortable in their learning experience. So with the quality teaching model, breaking it down a little bit, there are 3 specific dimensions, and then there are 18 elements that fall under those 3 dimensions. So the first dimension that we have is intellectual quality. So within that category, we have things like deep knowledge, deep understanding, problematic knowledge, higher order thinking, meta language, and substantive communication. For a quality learning environment, you have things such as explicit quality criteria, engagement, high expectations, social support, student self-regulation, and student direction. And then finally, we have significance, so things like background knowledge, cultural knowledge, knowledge integration, inclusivity, connectedness, and narrative. So this model here is what teachers and the classroom as a whole are assessed on, where the classroom ranks, kind of looking through these 18 different elements. So implementation in classrooms, what can you do as an educator to ensure that you are teaching at a quality level to help students with their learning and their understanding? We want to make sure that we are reflecting on and evaluating current teaching practices. Then, with that being said, working to implement critical thinking skills that emphasize innovation and creativity. You also want to make sure that you're emphasizing multiple strategies and learning methods because differentiation is so important. Not every single student learns the same way, so we need to be aware of that and work towards reaching every single student. You also want to make sure that you are including that quantity portion where we are collecting and observing data and the impact that certain programs have on students. If they are effective and they are conducive to the learning environment, then in what ways can you continue to implement those programs? And if they are not working well, they are not effective, then what things need to change or be modified in order to assure that students are being able to be successful. Then we also want to make sure that we are encouraging collaboration, and this also includes educators collaborating with their colleagues. And finally, improving culture through understanding, respect, and rapport. And again, that not only goes for educators creating an environment where students feel like they can do these things, but also creating a space where educators are able to collaborate with their colleagues as well and have a sense of a strong culture. And then we have the benefits of the quality teaching model. So the quality teaching model allows educators to see their strengths and weaknesses through student understanding. So rather than placing the emphasis on the teachers, it is on the teaching itself. And you can reflect through your processes based on what your students know and understand. It highlights the importance of effective teaching strategies. And it helps educators see the value in their connections and why connection and content are aligned. There is also always room for growth. So you are able to focus on the ways that you teach rather than you are as a teacher. And it rethinks how you want to teach. And it shows that teaching and learning are interconnected with one another because you cannot teach if you are not able to learn as well.